Be the envy of the neighborhood. 860 KKAT, where the grass is always greener. Welcome to Gardening Utah. Here's composter and show hoster, Jana Francis.
Welcome to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis. Every week here on Gardening Utah, we give you gardening inspiration and advice from experts across the state. We talk about vegetables, flowers, trees, shrubs, and of course, your lawn. Thank you for listening. I hope this show is something that you'll look forward to checking in with every week. Whether you're a beginner or an expert, Gardening Utah aims to inspire you and keep you in the know of what tasks you should be accomplishing in your yard and meet amazing, informative experts along the way. This show airs on the radio on the weekends here in Utah at 10 a.m. on 860 AM KKAT, and episodes drop every weekend on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, so hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. On today's show, we are going to be solving a problem for you. That's right. If you have a yard and a landscape, whether you are needing to completely redo it, or whether you are just going to spruce up a few areas, or if you're like me and you've got quite a bit that still needs to get done, well, we're going to be talking with my favorite plant nerd, Cameron Alcott, and we're going to literally list out for you some of the amazing trees, shrubs, and perennials, so kind of your ornamentals that can really work very well for this area and set a beautiful foundation for your yard, which is what ornamentals really do, right? You really want to set that foundation first before you add all your little pretty annuals and that kind of a thing. So that's what we're going to go over in today's show, and all of the species are in the episode notes. Meanwhile, you know what time it is. We've got the tip of the week.
860 KKAT with your Gardening Utah tip of the week.
Whether you have seeds that you've nurtured yourself and grown indoors, or brand new plants that you've bought from the local nursery, quite often those plants need a helping hand in order to grow well outdoors. So here's how to harden off your vulnerable vegetables, fruits, and flowers. If you're new to starting your own seeds, or you've just purchased sprouts in your store, you may think that since the tiny plants have grown a few inches and sprouted a few leaves, you can just put them from their sheltered spot indoors right to outside in your garden. We've all been there and done that, but don't jump too quickly from planting from a container to the garden shovel, because those too early plants rushed into the ground are kind of like a toddler just learning to walk. They haven't learned all the ins and outs of the delicate dance from hand-holding to full steam ahead. So seedlings are tender and they've been sheltered their whole life. Think about it. They have been indoors, so they haven't experienced direct sunshine. They also haven't experienced wind. So like a toddler, those newborn plants need an extra step in their growing cycle. So in order to transition them successfully from inside to outside, they need a little loving care, and that is what is called hardening off. So basically, hardening off describes slowly exposing newly grown vegetables, fruits, and flowers to the elements, changing temperatures, varying levels of sunlight and wind to enable healthy growth. And while it doesn't take a ton of time, it does involve some vigilance and a few steps. So first off, number one is to make sure that you start hardening them off before the seedlings' frost dates are up. So you want to get a little bit of a step ahead. So for example, if you're about to plant tomatoes that have only been indoors, you're going to want to start about a week before you're going to get those in the ground, which most often in Utah is about mid-May. Then you're going to want to choose a hardening off spot that the seedlings will get some protection from wind and sun in their first couple hours outside. You have a couple options, including a shady spot against your home, a table under a tree, or inside a cold frame. And then put your seeds outside for about an hour in the mid to late afternoon. Now, move them to a hardening off spot for just an hour or two, and then make sure the plants aren't getting bashed around by the wind and that they're protected from pests, like not going to get stepped on by the dog or any animals. And then move your plants back indoors. And at the end of that first day's hardening off time, put them back inside. And if they're in a cold frame, close and secure the opening. And then each day, leave your seedlings outside for an hour or more than the previous day, gradually giving them more and more direct sunlight at a time. And at the same time, you can move them to a less sheltered location, so further away from the house where they might experience a little bit more wind or a little bit more direct sun, for example. And then protect them as needed. If the temperatures are going to dip, if it's going to, rain really hard or snow that day, then don't do it at all. Just take your time. But if the temperatures dip during the hardening off time, you need to bring them back inside or into the cold frame or wherever you're growing them. And just make sure that you do this gradually and protect your seedlings as needed. This will ensure that the investment and time you've already made in planting these plants will make sure that when they get out in the garden, they're strong, they can protect themselves from the wind, and they won't get burned by the sun, and we will have our happy, happy plants.
And that's your Gardening Utah Tip of the Week, brought to you by The Advocates. If you're in an accident, you deserve an advocate. Call 801-355-5550 or visit UtahAdvocates.com. Never miss a tip for your garden and never miss an episode. The Gardening Utah Podcast with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT.
Okay, so I want to know what's growing in your yard. I want to know what you're planting. I want to see what's blooming right now. We are all loving spring. I know it's been a little bit rainy the past couple days, but thankfully we need a lot of this water and our plants do as well. But I want to see what's happening. So post it on Instagram, hashtag Gardening Utah, and I will be looking these up and I will be reposting them to our Instagram stories because I love to communicate with our listeners and I'm having a lot of fun seeing what's happening in your yard. So again, use hashtag Gardening Utah. I will keep looking you up and reposting you to our stories. All right, so if you have not yet entered to win, you've heard me the last couple weeks talking about your ability to enter to win a Q&R box garden. It's a raised bed 4x8 that you can have delivered to your home if you're one of our winners. We have 5 more possibilities to win. We picked our last winner last month. Congratulations to him. And we had a winner out of Lehigh, super excited for his family to get a Q&R box garden in their yard. But go to 860kkat.com and hit the contest link. And you can enter to win a raised bed from Q&R Box Garden. I'm really excited about this contest because it is such a great value. It's a $400 value to have this box created and delivered to your yard. So check that out at 860 and KKAT, and we're going to get right into today's episode with all of these amazing plants, trees, and shrubs that you can have in your yard. I think you're going to really enjoy this, especially if you're looking for things that will grow exponentially well right here in the great state of Utah. We'll be right back after this message right here on Gardening Utah. Stay with us.
She's more than just gardening puns and sage advice. It's Gardening Utah with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT. Gardening Utah, available wherever you get your podcasts and at 860kkat.com/garden. Here's Jana Francis.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis, and with me today in actual real life,
in person,
is Cameron Alcott with ProgressivePlants.com. This is so exciting and kind of crazy because this is like the second time we've recorded the show in each other's presence, but you've been on the show so many times, so this is kind of fun to actually be in the same room.
It's like we're friends, but not friends, but now we're friends again.
Exactly. So we have something really fun planned today, and I'm just going to let Cameron take it away because this was totally his idea, and I'm super excited about it. So what are we doing today, Cameron?
We're going to pick out the plants that we're going to put in your yard.
See, everybody, how lucky I am? So if you've listened to this show, you know that I live on an acre in the middle of Salt Lake City, and I've only landscaped half of my yard so far. And so we've got another half acre to go. And of course, I'm enlisting the help of Cameron, because why wouldn't you? And he's put together this plan that I haven't even seen, you guys. So we're going to be talking about the different things that he thinks we need to put in my yard. And it also encompasses a lot of new things at Progressive Plants. Am I correct?
Yeah, there's a lot of new varieties that have been coming out. And some of these aren't really like brand spanking new. They're just varieties that they might have been around for a while, but not really introduced into Utah. And sometimes they are so old that they are new again.
Aha.
So that's how we're kind of approaching this.
Okay, love it.
So I think what we'll probably do is kind of maybe start with some of the trees. This is something that I really like the trees quite a bit because I'm always trying to find something new and different and whatnot. And one of the new ones this year, and these we already have these at the nursery. These are called a winter gold white fir. They are really kind of cool because they have like a nice golden hue to them during the winter, and they're supposed to be more of a dwarf variety of concolor, because I know that you've got a concolor here on your property and it is ginormous.
Yes, it's my favorite tree ever.
Yeah, this one's going to stay a lot smaller. I honestly don't know how big it's going to get, but we're thinking it's going to be like 10 to 15 feet by maybe 7 to 10 feet wide. They are not going to be anywhere near as aggressive, growing. But their winter color is gold, and then their summer color is more of like a lime green.
I love this.
So I think it's going to be really cool, especially with the color of your house. I think it's going to jive really, really well. And then we have another one that I like. So anybody who knows me knows that I love paper bark maples. Okay. They have been breeding paper bark maple varieties now for a while, and they came out with a new one this year called Copper Rocket. I'm not really all that familiar with it, but it is a lot more narrow than the standard cultivar, because the standard cultivar will get probably 10 to 15 feet wide, somewhere around there. They look really good as a multi-stem, and that exfoliating bark is absolutely just gorgeous. It's kind of like a rusty reddish color. Ooh. And it's pretty.
Oh, I love it. It's so pretty. And if you're listening to this, maybe you're driving in the car, maybe you're out in your own garden and listening. We're going to put a link to all of these trees that Cameron's going to go through in the episode notes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you're listening. And if you are a member of the Utah Gardeners Facebook page, and it's actually a group, it's not a page, so I mean a Facebook group, we are actually broadcasting live in that group as we speak right now, and we are showing these cultivars in a PowerPoint presentation that Cameron has so eloquently put together. So you can easily just join the Utah Gardeners Facebook group, and you can click through to see this actual live video and watch all of the pictures and the descriptions of each plant that he's talking about. And this is super fun for me because I haven't seen any of this, so I'm super, super excited.
The next tree that we have up here is it's a gymnocladus, also known as a Kentucky coffee tree. Kentucky coffee trees are really kind of cool because they have some pretty cool like double compound leaves, and they grow in like really like crappy soils, and so you can use them just about anywhere. Now, the one thing that a lot of people don't like about Kentucky coffee trees is that sometimes they produce a lot of litter, like seed pods and whatever, things like that. This one called Decaf doesn't really produce any seed pods.
Decaf coffee tree. See, that's going to be, I need a little sign. Yeah. This is my decaf Kentucky coffee tree. That sounds so amazing.
Exactly. Now, they do get pretty big, so make sure you have some space for them. So you want to have like, pretty big property. I mean, they will get about 50 feet tall, 40 feet wide. So pretty big tree. Okay. So make sure you have like the space for those. So here's another one that I really like. So I really like funky trees. And the genus Larix is kind of unique. You might know it better as a larch. Okay, you probably heard of a larch before. This one is called Horseman's Recurva. So it has a really contorted branching structure and is really kind of funky and weird. Bright green needles in the spring. Now, this is a rare thing called a deciduous conifer. So it is essentially, this is like any horticulturist is going to slaughter me for saying this. It's essentially a pine tree that drops its needles.
Whoa.
In the winter.
Okay, I was 2 years old when I knew that existed.
But it's not really a pine, so like horticulture friends, please don't kill me. So it's just, I'm trying to make it simple. Yeah. But they're really kind of neat. So the weird contorted look and things like that. So it gives you some winter interest as well. So you have a conifer that you would get for winter interest, but is not green, but has contorted branches.
Whoa, I'm obsessed with this because I love weird looking trees. I love those that curve, and I love weeping trees, and it kind of goes with my Dr. Seuss tree in the front.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is what What's my Dr. Seuss tree?
Oh, which Dr. Seuss tree is that? Is
The
that
one
the
in the
cedar?
front corner. Yeah, the cedar.
Oh, yeah, you have the Deodore cedar that's up there?
Yeah, it's pretty killer.
So it's kind
a lot of
neat.
interest. So those match.
Yep. So here's another one that I really like. Now, this one's kind of old. This is called the Chief Joseph lodgepole pine. So it's basically just a lodgepole pine, but it has the same type of thing where it has like a winter interest of turning gold. Now, these have actually been around for a long time. I think there's one at BYU.
Really?
Yeah. Our Facebook moderator, Brian Burr, I think he told me that there is one down there. I'm pretty sure. Can't remember for sure. But they're really kind of neat. And from what I understand, it's absolutely beautiful. I myself don't spend a whole lot of time on BYU's campus because it's so far away. And I'm also really old and I have no reason to be there. So,
well, that's a good sign then.
Exactly. So here's another conifer that I fell in love with this. So this is a Pinus strobus called blue clovers. So this is kind of related more to like your eastern white pines. I have never seen anything this blue, and I have yet to see it in person. So when I get them in, I am going to be absolutely stoked. So this is actually kind of, it almost looks as blue like a blue spruce, like a hoopsii or a baccarii, one of those really blue cultivars, but has a lot longer needles and is a little bit more softer. So I'm really excited to try to put this one somewhere in your yard.
Okay. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. It almost looks like a flocked Christmas tree.
It does look like a flocked Christmas tree. Trying to find pictures of it on the internet was really hard.
Really?
Yeah.
I love it.
This is another cedar that we use. This is called a Harvest Gold Deodore cedar. I really like the gold looking conifers. I think they add a lot of interest into the landscape. And historically they used to burn a little bit more, but they've been breeding them to be a lot more heat tolerant. So I'm getting more and more brave about using these in properties around the Salt Lake Valley. So they seem to be withstanding a lot of the high temperatures a heck of a lot better than what they used to. So, might as well. I mean, there's actually a gorgeous one up by your house.
So that's my old house, and I planted that. Can you believe it?
For reals?
It's my old house.
Oh, wow.
That's
weird.
Lived in before I built this one, yeah.
That's weird.
Isn't that crazy? Wow. So yes, I planted one and it's doing phenomenal.
That's great.
Up there, yep.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of them over in Holiday too, and there's some really big ones over there. They're really kind of pretty. So anyway, here's another tree that is so old it's new again. Okay. I actually posted this in our private chat on...
is this the one from earlier?
This is the one from earlier today. So this is a... I don't even know the common name of this. It's like basically a fern leaf European beech. And Liz was talking about this too, because I think her parents have one.
Her father-in-law,
Her father-in-law has one, or her father. I can't remember what she said now. And she actually asked me about this last year. She's like, Cameron, can you get this? And what is this? And I'm like, it's this.
I love it.
It's wonderful. It's a cool looking tree. The leaves on it are really ornate and really lacy. It has a really good structure. I personally love beech trees because I think their bark is attractive. I think their structure is attractive. And in the right spot here in Utah, I mean, I think that they can perform very well. Sometimes they do burn a little bit in the heat a little bit, but if I remember correctly, this one actually did a lot better because it has a smaller surface area and the cuticle and the leaves just seem to be a little bit thicker, so it didn't burn the same way that a lot of other beech do. So I was kind of excited for this one.
I love it. And, Liz had mentioned it looks a little bit like it could possibly be, like in a Japanese garden. It's gorgeous.
Yep. Okay, so here's another one. This is kind of funky. This is actually a peach tree.
A peach tree?
Yeah.
A weeping peach tree.
A weeping peach tree.
It's beautiful.
It's called, it's a Prunus persica crimson cascade. It's really kind of cool. It's mostly ornamental. It doesn't really produce any fruit that are really edible or anything like that, but it is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, these hot pink blooms that are on them. I mean, how neat are these?
I'm obsessed.
I know. I want to put one in my yard. So.
I love it.
We'll find a spot for it. So Jana's going to buy one of everything.
Yep.
So here's a couple of other ones. These are another couple of ornamental peaches called Corinthian Pink and Corinthian White. These are columnar ornamental peaches, okay? You're not really going to get a whole lot of fruit on these that you're going to eat, so just so you know. But to me, these are really kind of cool because they are replacements to, say, like some of the columnar cherries, columnar pears, which we all hate because they smell terrible. I'd rather see a lot more of these around. I don't know.
Our favorite tree.
Our favorite tree. I don't know how well these are going to hold up against, like, peach tree borers and things like that. So you may have to kind of look for some of those, the common pests that will attack a lot of the things in the Prunus species. But, hey, it might be, kind of worth it. So I am in love with Japanese umbrella pines. I personally do not have a whole lot of experience with them, but they are so cool.
That's okay. We can test it out at my house.
We'll test it out at your house.
Okay.
So they have like really thick needles on them. And they have a really cool structure with it. So I just kind of want to try them out. I've seen them at a couple of other nurseries. I saw them up at like J&J.
Ooh.
Where else I see them? I think Glover will have them every once in a while. But I think they're really kind of neat. And I just kind of want to start using them, ornamentally and start keeping track of how well some of these things are performing. Because I know sometimes, like a lot of like nurseries and whatnot, we just kind of buy stuff just to see what happens. And then we don't really hear back from them. And I'm kind of in a unique position where I can plant stuff at your house and then come see you and just be like, hey, have you killed it yet?
Exactly. That's exactly right. Okay, well, we are going to be right back after this with more on Gardening Utah. Stay with us.
860 KKAT with Jenna Francis and Gardening Utah, where it's always mulch time. She really does have the nicest yard on the block. It's Gardening Utah with Jenna Francis on 860 KKAT.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jenna Francis, and I'm hanging out with Cameron Alcott here from ProgressivePlants.com, and we're talking trees that we're going to be putting in my yard, and I can't wait. And also, not just my yard, but
other people's yards as well.
Yes. and trees and shrubs and things that are these relatively new to Progressive Plants? Or?
Yes and no. I mean, we've carried a lot of these before. So like this one here that I have up on our screen here, this is a weeping willow. I mean, it's not new.
No.
People have had weeping willows since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
We just stopped carrying them because we don't like them.
Okay.
Just from a horticultural standpoint, but people still like them, and and everything still has a use.
Yeah.
So weeping willows. I mean, they're very beautiful. They're great trees on large properties, way out in the distance, where if the wind picks up and breaks one and it falls over, it doesn't crush anything.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So away from homes.
Away from homes. I mean, they're messy trees. They get a lot of aphids. Then when you get aphids, you get like a lot of like hornets and wasps and predators. The aphids produce like a honeydew, and then that kind of drips. So they have weak wood, and they get disease. They end up being kind of like a nightmare, but people love them. So they buy them for, sentimental reasons and whatnot. But again, if you have like, a large amount of property and you just want to admire it from a distance, great. If you have a 1/4 acre lot and you want to put this on your property, it's probably going to be a bad idea.
Yeah.
So, but
maybe this would be good out by the river.
Oh yeah, it would be great by the river. So, okay, so the next one up, the tree lilacs. Now they're breeding tree lilacs like you would not even believe. So we are getting a couple of new ones this year. One's called Summer Charm. Another one's called Snowcap and Ivory Pillar. These are a little bit slightly thinner varieties than the regular species. And one of my main complaints about the older species of tree lilacs is that they just don't really grow a ton. They don't have like a good structure to them, and they just kind of sit there and they don't really do much. Back east, they perform completely differently. They get like big and huge and bloom and whatnot. Here I've been a little underwhelmed for the most part, but they do survive pretty well. So these new ones are supposed to be a little bit more vigorous, a little bit more narrow, a little bit more predictable in shape. And so I'm kind of excited to see how these work. The one thing that I have learned about tree lilacs is that they do bloom a lot better if you give them regular pruning after they bloom.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because they bloom off of old wood, I believe. So they will do better if you prune them slightly after, right when they're done blooming. You'll get better branching structure and you'll get more blooms for the next year.
Got it.
So
it's gorgeous. I didn't know that there was a tree lilac. So this is
they are really, really pretty. There are some gorgeous ones downtown. Actually, I saw some really good ones in Highland last year during the USU Hidden Garden Tour. It was absolutely stellar. So
as far as this tree and maybe some of the others, is there certain areas with any of these trees, and maybe as we talk about them, if there's any areas where they particularly won't do well, it'd be kind of interesting to know.
Yes, tree lilacs are actually pretty forgiving. You can use them in just about like any type of location. The hard part with tree lilacs is that if they get stressed, sometimes they are susceptible to like the like ash lilac borer. But you'll kind of see that because you'll get like entire branches that just start to die, and that's usually a pretty good indication. You'll have like little boreholes in them. You can cut those out, because like that borer also affects like regular lilacs as well. So it's they'll take a little bit of maintenance, but if you keep them healthy, they're usually pretty resistant to a lot of these pests. So here's another one where I think like every horticulturist is going to look at me like, what are you thinking? This is a flowering dogwood tree. Okay. Historically, I have told people that don't plant these trees because they do not do well in Utah. They like a little bit more acidic soil. They don't like the high temperatures that we have to deal with. But I went on a consultation for one of the Utah Gardeners Facebook members. It was probably 2 or maybe even 3 years ago now. I walked onto her property. We walked into her backyard, and my jaw hit the ground. And I was like, that is a flowering dogwood tree. And this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It was thrilling.
Oh, okay? Wow.
So there are little pockets where these things will work. You're really going to want to analyze your soil, your protection level. These things are not going to want to be in full sun, completely exposed. You're going to want to give them like a little bit of shelter, especially from like the afternoon sun, to where, they can survive and look kind of nice. But I mean, I saw this. I'll show you a picture when we're done. Like, it was like, I took a picture of it, and it was pink in full glory. I was like, wow, that's gorgeous.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, kind of neat. Shrubs. How much time do we have?
Shrubs, yay! Okay, we've got about 2 minutes left in this segment.
Okay, we'll start with the shrubs a little bit. One of the things that we're going to try to do this year, even though it's not really a shrub, it's a vine, is a hardy kiwi vine. It's called acai. I know that these are going to want to be a little bit cooler. They like to be kept a little bit more moist. Culturally, from what I've seen, I've actually never grown this before, so we don't know.
Okay.
So
it's beautiful.
Yep. Now, this was actually a suggestion that I got from, our partner designer, Jessica Schmutz. Hi, Jessica. She's in Mexico right now, by the way. This is called Aseski Gold Dwarf Birch. This is a yellowish color. It's a birch tree.
Yeah.
That's a shrub. But I believe it is like a zone 3, so it'll actually work up in Park City.
Ooh.
So I am actually kind of excited for this because there's that lime yellow color sometimes is a little bit hard to find.
Yeah.
And you don't have like a whole lot of options with it. So I'm kind of excited for this one, and its fall color is supposed to be really, really good too. But its new growth is supposed to be kind of like with yellow and red and orange and a little bit chartreuse. So it'll be kind of neat to kind of see what happens with it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
Well, I'm excited for people in Park City because being a girl that grew up there, you're so jealous when you drive to Salt Lake. Well, at least I was, because I'm a garden geek. But driving down here, and you're like, wow, there's so many beautiful things that grow.
Right.
But they get the aspens.
Yeah. Yep.
So there's that.
There is that. So, butterfly bush, anything in the Buddleia family generally will do fairly well for us up here in Utah. I used to kind of shy away from butterfly bush because the older varieties got really old and ratty, and they never looked right, and just like they were ugly. But now they have been breeding all of these different new ones. I mean, you've probably heard me talk about like the Pugster series.
Yes.
I love those quite a bit. And then now we have like the Humdinger collection. So now we have longer blooms, longer lengthwise, different foliage colors. I think this little nugget is more of like a gold foliage with purple flowers. I mean, that's a good combination.
Amazing.
Yeah. And
the best thing about butterfly bush is that they are literally covered in butterflies.
all the time.
And all the other amazing pollinators and hummingbirds and all the good stuff. So, okay, if you are listening to this on KKAT 860 AM or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, you can go to the episode notes and you can look at a link to all of these individual plants that we're talking about right there in the episode notes. It will take you right on over to progressiveplants.com where you can check them out. And we'll be right back with more after this right here on Gardening Utah. Stay with us.
She's more than just gardening puns and sage advice. It's Gardening Utah with Jenna Francis on 860 KKAT. 860 KKAT with more of the fastest growing show on radio. It's Gardening Utah with Jenna Francis.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jenna Francis, and I'm here with Cameron Alcott with ProgressivePlants.com. This has been fun.
It has been fun.
So if you're just joining us, we have been talking about trees and shrubs, and very specifically, these are trees and shrubs that A, are available at ProgressivePlants.com, B, that I'm going to be buying from them to put in my yard because I have about a half an acre that I'm landscaping right now. Just kind of getting into the process. And ever since I met Cameron a little over a year ago, and he was on the first, for the first time on Gardening Utah, I just have been like, cannot wait to buy some of the amazing trees and shrubs that he has. So he has got a very cool, PowerPoint presentation here we're looking at. So you as a listener, if you're listening to this, you can go to the episode notes on Apple Podcast or Spotify, and you can click through and look at all of these beauties because we're going to put all of the links there. And also, if you're a member of the Utah Gardeners Facebook group, you can go into that group or you can ask to join if you're not. And we've actually Cameron's got the pictures and the descriptions of every single one of these with this particular Facebook Live. So you can click in there, you can watch this because we are recording on Facebook Live at the same time. So back at it with more stuff. And we were talking butterfly bushes. I can't wait because I love them so much. And so you've got a pink cascade and a Prince Charming here. Yeah.
So actually pink cascade, I think we actually picked up last year. We just kind of did it on a whim. We loved it because it's like its shape was really, I don't even know if there's a word for it, but it was like really pendulous, and it was very different from any other butterfly bush that I'd ever seen. And it was absolutely gorgeous. And I probably should have used it for like a Weird Plant Wednesday or something, but it was very, very cool. A new one that we are doing is Prince Charming. This one is supposed to have like a lot bigger flower heads than what the traditional ones do. So I'm excited for this one as well. Again, I don't have a whole lot of experience with it, but generally as a rule, the Buddleia genus is going to work just about anywhere that's a zone 5. They aren't too terribly cold hardy. So if you get up really high up on the benches, they might kind of struggle a little bit. The other thing with these two is that they do not like wet feet, and they do not like to be covered in snow because they will get kind of like what's called kind of like crown rot, I guess is what it is. I don't know if that's actually what it is, but they don't like to have wet stems over the winter. So
gotcha.
Okay, this is another neat one that we're going to do. This is a blue mist spirea or bluebeard or caryopteris, depending on what are where you are in the industry. So most of these are actually like silver in color with blue flowers.
Okay? I love it.
Now this one is yellow foliage with blue flowers.
Ooh, pretty.
And it's a lot more compact than there was another one that used to be called Sunshine Blue. It's probably still in production, but it would get like big and rangy and it just didn't look very good. This one's supposed to be smaller, more compact, a little bit more neat. So we're really kind of excited for it. This will attract a ton of pollinators. So
yay.
If you have bees.
Yes, I do.
This is what you want.
Love it.
Yeah. So this is another one. This is probably more for like landscape architects rather than just like, people who just have stuff for the yard. This is called Little Rebel Dogwood. Now this is a dwarf dogwood that just stays like really kind of small and teeny. We're trying to get it to replace a dogwood called Kelsey, Kelsey's been around for a long time, and like very long time, like 80, 100 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And it never really thrives here in Utah, and I've even noticed like a decline in like how well it's performing in other areas of the country. So they've been trying to develop something to kind of, counteract that one a little bit. And landscape architects use the Kelsey dogwood a lot because it's very small and round. It only gets like 2 feet by 2 feet, but it's not really that pretty. It's just there, and then has red stems in the winter.
Gotcha.
I'm like, boring. But, so that's what that one is. So, okay, here's another one that I'm doing. And again, people in the horticultural industry are probably going to be like, Cameron, what are you thinking? So we're actually probably going to start working a little bit more with endless summer hydrangeas. There's a couple of different varieties. There's Twist and Shout, Summer Crush, and Bloomstruck. And my wheels started cranking a couple years ago when the plant breeder, Bailey's Nurseries, I went to Minnesota with my girlfriend at the time, and she's still my girlfriend, not at the time. Wow, I'm gonna catch that later. But I love you, Mandy. So anyway, we went over there, and we saw like these fields and fields and fields of hydrangeas that were in full bloom, and these front end loaders picking them up and putting them in a dumpster. They miss their sales projections. They just chuck stuff. It's cheaper for them to throw things away than to try to liquidate it. It's silly.
It just makes me sick.
So, but anyway, I kind of liked it. They were telling me about like what they've been doing with the breeding and everything and whatnot, and what improvements that they've been making for them to get them to perform in a wider array of climates. And so I started kind of like planting them in a couple of different projects that I was working on, and then just keeping an eye on them. And Bloomstruck actually was performing very well in the places that I put it. I put them in a couple places in Holiday, a couple places in Sandy, and they did surprisingly well. Now, these are the hydrangeas that you can kind of control the color a little bit just based on the soil pH. But I'm telling you right now, you will never control the color because we are so alkaline. They're going to be pink.
Okay.
They're never going to be blue.
Got it.
You can try. Now, unless you have it in a container, not going to happen.
So it's the soil that impacts the color.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So some plants kind of perform that way. So anyway, Bloomstruck is going to be pink. But the nice thing about these ones is that they bloom both off of new and old wood. The old hydrangea macrophyllus, the big leaf or mophead hydrangeas, they bloomed only off of old wood. And in Utah, that's really kind of hard because we're so dry. All the moisture gets sucked out of like all the old stems, and so then you don't ever get any blooms. You just would get a plant that was green.
Yeah.
And then it would fry when it got really hot. So
yeah.
So I tried some of the Bloomstrucks in a couple of different houses. I have a client who lives next to my girlfriend in Holiday who had Summer Crush, and I saw those last year and I was floored. I think she got those from Mill Creek Gardens, and they were amazing in her yard. So I'm like, okay, we can use these in the right type of situation. So understanding your soil conditions and your exposures, then you can start like looking at some of these hydrangeas that traditionally most nurseries are going to poo-poo a little bit, but if you have the right plant in the right space, you can make it work.
And these need afternoon shade, correct?
I would say most of the hydrangea macrophyllus, you're going to want to have majority of afternoon shade. They're great if they can get about like 4 to 6 hours in the morning, but and if they get exposed to temperatures above like 85 to 90 without the humidity that you get like back east or in the south or anything, they're gonna struggle.
Okay.
So it's going to be kind of like a case by case basis. So here's a new one that I was like, from a horticulture standpoint, I was like, this is neat. So this is a new one called Let's Dance Ariba.
Ooh. It's
a hydrangea macrophylla and a hydrangea serrata cross. So it's supposed to be a little teeny tiny shrub. It's supposed to like prolifically flower, and it's a reblooming hydrangea. So its flower color is going to be soil, or soil pH dependent. So it's going to be pink.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything about this. Don't ask me where it's going to grow or how well it's going to do, because I have no idea, because I've never had to deal with this before.
Well, we're going to test it out.
We're going to test it out.
Color. It's just this beautiful hot pink.
Yeah. So my mother lives in Draper, and she's on culinary water for her beds and secondary water for her lawn. But we did some hydrangea serratas, or the mountain hydrangea, at her house, and she fell in love with them. They've been in for about 3 years, and she's been doing great.
They looked amazing. Is that the picture you sent me that one time?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was I planted 3 at my girlfriend's house on holiday, and I killed them. So,
oh, no.
Yeah, it was my fault. So, okay, panicle hydrangeas. Now, if you like hydrangeas, these are the easiest ones to deal with. There's a huge amount of species or varieties on the panicle hydrangeas. Just really quick, the new ones that we're doing is Limelight Prime. So it's going to be the replacement for Limelight. Okay. It's supposed to be more upright. Okay. So they don't have like the big flowers that kind of make it lay down. Yeah. If you go past, I think it's the Holiday City building on 23rd East. I think somewhere around there, about like 45th South. I think they're limelights that they have in front of their buildings. And then like in August, I just see the big blooms just weighing everything down. So this is supposed to kind of fix that problem. And then some new ones that we're doing are Quickfire Fab and Firelight Tidbit. I think these are both proven winner addictions. Actually, all 3 of these, I believe, are proven winners. So they're going to be smaller, more compact, larger flower heads, better color. I mean, they're just coming out with these things. They're faster than what I can even really keep up with. So, but the color on them, I think, is really neat. They're supposed to get more and more heat tolerant. Now, most panicle hydrangeas, I will tell you, will benefit from afternoon shade to get them to color up. So if you can get them shaded after about 3 to 4 p.m. in the summer, you'll see a transition of that white or lime green color more into like a pink or a red. If they are exposed to full sun all the time, they will have a tendency to just go from white to brown.
Got it.
Until we start getting some cooler nights.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I can't wait for these.
Yeah, those are going to be kind of fun. Junipers. Normally, I don't really like junipers a ton, but they're kind of like a necessary evil here in Utah because they're a conifer, they're evergreen, and they grow anywhere. Yeah. A lot of the other conifers could be like a little iffy. So we have actually had our eye on this particular juniper called Woodward. It comes, I believe it's a Plant Select. It comes out of Colorado. I've been watching this for like a decade. They have been so hard to get because of how the Utah Department of Agriculture kind of like doesn't really allow you to import from states that have Japanese beetle. Which justifiably so. I am 100% supportive of this. Yeah. But this is a tall, skinny juniper. It's a cultivar of like the native juniper around here, Juniper scopularum. Really tall, really skinny, and works in zone 3 situations. Ooh. So that means places like Park City potentially could have something that looks like an Italian cypress. Wow. This changes a lot of what you can do design-wise up in higher elevations. Totally. So, and then another one is Juniperus communis tortuga, which is Spanish for turtle. Yes. So, and it's going to have like a really cool foliage to it. I really like how it looks. I'm kind of excited for this one. I love it. I love it. Okay, well, listen, on the radio show, we are out of time on 860 AM KKAT, but we have a lot more plants for you. So we're going to keep going on the podcast. If you're listening on the radio, you can go to Apple Podcast or Spotify, look up Gardening Utah, and find episode 45, and you can listen to the last part of the show, which is going to continue on with more cultivars as well as the after party. Well, that's it for today's episode of Gardening Utah. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. As always, let me know what you'd like to see on the show. You can message me on Instagram. Our handle is @GardeningUtah. Or if you hit up the episode notes on Apple Podcast or Spotify, you can see links to a lot of things that we talked about today. And you can link over to our social media and check out our Instagram, our Facebook, and send us a message that way as well. And while you're there, make sure you're subscribed to the show. And you know what? Give me a 5-star rating. I would love you for it. And if you give us a review and give us some love, we'll give it right back to you and read it on the show. Thanks again for listening. Shout out to our producer, Lambo. I'm Jana Francis. We'll see you next week here on Gardening Utah. And remember,
Grow big or go home.
When you're ready to grow big or go home, make your neighbors green with envy. Get the Gardening in Utah podcast, Gardening Utah, available wherever you get your podcasts and at 860kkat.com/garden.
We are supported by ProgressivePlant.com that will thrive in your location. Progressive Plant is passionate about helping homeowners, expert gardeners, novices alike choose the correct plant for your soil. They don't just grow plants, they know plants. Let Progressive Plants help you today. Just go to ProgressivePlant.com and check out their wide selection. You can also go to the Design tab and look at the expert designers that they have that can help you plan your perfect yard. Visit ProgressivePlant.com today.